Janet Jackson's political naivete, if that's what we're calling it, isn't something new for her. In fact, I think it's most evident with her most overtly political work, Rhythm Nation 1840, which turned 35 this week. It's interesting because in some ways this album transformed her into a star, but despite social consciousness as its main theme, I argue it's more a stain than a complete triumph. Now, do I expect a pop album from a 23-year-old who has grown up incredibly wealthy to be the Communist Manifesto?
Janet Jackson was born for the spotlight, but who could have guessed a single peekaboo boob moment would shake her entire empire? One split second on live TV nearly crushed decades of legendary hits. And while Timberlake kept it moving, CBS slammed the brakes on Janet like she was the problem.
I don't want to be involved in a stunt. That's not my style. You know, I don't have any reason to do this. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated at the whole situation. I'm frustrated that my character is being questioned. I don't feel like I need publicity like this. And I wouldn't want to be involved with a stunt, especially something of this magnitude.
2004 was supposed to be her year, the comeback of all comebacks. She wasn't just booked, she was locked in as the headliner for Super Bowl 38's halftime show, the biggest stage in the world. And the timing was perfect because right after the spectacle, she had a brand new album ready to drop. The stage was set for Janet to reclaim her throne. MTV hyped it up like it was the second coming of pop. Jessica Simpson, Nelly, P. Diddy, and Kid Rock were already confirmed to join her. But the real buzz came when whispers of a secret guest started spreading. That's when her choreographer dropped the bomb. Justin Timberlake was sliding in for a surprise cameo. Fans didn't even see it coming. One insider couldn't keep their excitement in, bragging, "I don't think the Super Bowl has ever seen a performance like this," and they weren't wrong. At the same time, Janet was pushing her brand new album, Damn Me to Joe, packed with fresh sounds that critics were gearing up to dissect. But instead of headlines praising her reinvention, she got hit with a scandal no one, especially Janet, could have ever seen coming. Janet's fans were ready for history at the Super Bowl halftime show, but no one, and I mean no one, was prepared for what went down that night. The crowd was already electrified after she crushed her opening medley, only to step off for a quick interlude before storming back with her unstoppable anthem, Rhythm Nation. Just when the energy hit its peak, Justin Timberlake suddenly popped up, catching the audience completely off guard. The two then launched into his smash hit, Rock Your Body, their chemistry sizzling on stage like fireworks. But then came the line that would rewrite pop culture forever. Timberlake sang, "Gotta have you naked by the end of this song." And in one shocking moment, he yanked at Janet's costume and exposed her entire breast on live TV to millions. That split second was burned into history as the infamous Nipplegate. The phrase wardrobe malfunction was born that night, but what followed was no laughing matter. The backlash was nuclear. According to Vox, the FCC slapped CBS and Janet with a staggering $550,000 fine. Meanwhile, Timberlake walked away without a scratch. No penalty, no fine, no real fallout. Janet did score a brief legal win when judges later ruled the fine was unfair, but the damage was already done. Even though MTV confirmed the incident was an accident and both Janet and Justin issued public apologies, the media storm zeroed in on one person only, Janet Jackson. Timberlake, he was practically shielded while Janet was dragged through the mud, painted as the villain of the century. At first, MTV stood behind Janet, but that support vanished quicker than smoke. Almost overnight, an exec flipped the script and accused Janet of masterminding the whole thing herself. Suddenly, she wasn't a victim of a live TV accident. She was painted as a schemer, accused of engineering the stunt just to shock America. And the timing couldn't have been worse. The Grammys were only days away, and both Janet and Justin were set to perform. But then the headlines broke, Janet was out. According to the New York Times, she was yanked from the lineup at the last minute while Justin showed up to the event like nothing ever happened. Not only did he get to perform, but he walked away with 2 shiny Grammys, Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for Cry Me a River, and Best Pop Album for Justified. The irony? His acceptance speech even circled back to the halftime scandal, where he labeled it regrettable and tossed in yet another apology. But here's where the knife twisted deeper. Fans quickly learned Janet hadn't just stepped away from the Grammys, she'd been disinvited. Why? Because she refused to apologize on stage during the live broadcast. The wild part, she had already apologized immediately after the Super Bowl incident, yet that wasn't enough for the industry powers running the show. Janet was punished, humiliated, and shut out, while Justin got trophies and applause. Entertainment Weekly later revealed the truth. Timberlake faced the exact same ultimatum as Janet, but because he agreed to go on stage and apologize, he was given the green light to attend the Grammys. Janet, on the other hand, stood her ground and refused to play along. The result? She was cut, and her spot in a heartfelt tribute to her close friend Luther Vandross was handed over to Patti LaBelle. The message was loud and clear: conform or be erased. Still, Janet tried to shift her focus back to the music, pushing forward with her new album, Demita Joe. In its first week, it sold just over 380,000 copies, a strong number by most standards, but instead of celebrating, she was overshadowed. Usher's Confessions stole the #1 spot on the Billboard 200. For Janet, this stung even harder because her previous record, All For You, had debuted at #1, just like 4 of her earlier albums. This time, though, things were different. The reviews were split right down the middle. Some praised Demita Joe for its sleek production and bold sound, but others slammed it as being too sexual, as if Janet daring to express her own sensuality was suddenly a crime. But the real dagger came from behind the scenes. As Rolling Stone exposed, the album's downfall wasn't just about critics, it was sabotage. Major radio stations and TV networks, including MTV and VH1, quietly blacklisted her music after the Super Bowl scandal. Her songs weren't played, her videos weren't shown, and her career momentum was deliberately choked. Janet pushed on, but it was like running uphill in quicksand. The industry had turned its back on her. Janet tried to keep her head high, but every move she made, the shadow of the Super Bowl followed her. On the late-night circuit, she was constantly prodded about it. David Letterman even brought it up, to which she flatly warned, "I don't want to relive any of that." Her words said it all. She was exhausted, done with the circus. Even still, she couldn't escape it. On Saturday Night Live, Janet was pushed into making light of the scandal, forced to rehash the controversy as if her pain was a punchline. And after that, she went quiet. For years, she refused to speak on the matter again, locking it away while the industry kept her in the penalty box. By 2006, 2 years had passed, and while the media frenzy had cooled, her career was still bruised. That year, Janet attempted a true comeback, stepping onto Oprah's stage to finally clear the air once and for all. She didn't sugarcoat it. She admitted the wardrobe malfunction left her completely embarrassed. But what shocked fans most was her confession that the apology she gave back then wasn't even from her heart. Janet revealed she'd been pressured by her own management team into apologizing, and she regretted it deeply because at the end of the day, the moment was nothing more than an accident, plain and simple. But right before Janet's big sit-down with Oprah, Justin Timberlake had already jumped ahead of the story. In an interview with MTV, he downplayed the whole thing, calling the backlash unfair. His words softened the heat on himself, while Janet was still carrying the weight of the scandal all alone. Justin himself even admitted it. America just wasn't as forgiving when it came to ethnic minorities. He openly suggested the backlash against Janet was harsher because of who she was, not just what happened. Janet later told Oprah she agreed with that sentiment, adding that Justin had personally reached out to apologize. But her response said it all. "I'll speak to him in my own time." The wound was still fresh, and she knew the scales of accountability were never balanced. She made it clear, all the pressure fell on her shoulders. All the emphasis was put on me. Not on Justin, and she was right. The world punished Janet while Justin's star only burned brighter. Around that same moment, Janet tried again to reclaim her place in music with her 9th studio album, 20YO, a tribute to the groundbreaking controls she'd dropped 20 years earlier. But instead of a victory lap, she ran into the same wall she faced with Demita Joe. Reviews were mixed, and while the album debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200, it never reached the top spot. The reason? Radio and TV outlets once again blacklisted her, refusing to give her the support her music deserved. Meanwhile, just 2 weeks earlier, Justin had dropped Future Sex Love Sounds, and the difference was night and day. According to Billboard, it debuted at #1, skyrocketing past the sales of his 2002 album Justified. While Janet was clawing for air, Justin was rewarded with a career-defining era. The double standard couldn't have been louder. More than a decade later, something wild happened. Critics circled back to Janet's music and realized they had gotten it wrong. With fresh ears and a new cultural lens, they began reassessing Damita Jo and 20YO and admitted the albums had been judged unfairly from the jump. What many black journalists were saying at the time, that Janet's work was being dismissed because of prejudice and timing, was finally being acknowledged. Pitchfork even came out and confirmed it. Damita Jo wasn't a flop because of quality, it was dismissed because of when it dropped and what it dared to say. The album's bold sexual energy rubbed critics the wrong way, especially in the shadow of the Super Bowl fiasco. It wasn't about the music, it was about controlling Janet's image. Pop Matters chimed in too, re-examining 20YO as a project that actually tackled heavy themes like racism and sexism. Looking back, they argued the album was especially powerful in retrospect, a statement piece buried under controversy. But the real bombshell came when people started asking who was actually pulling the strings behind Janet's downfall. By 2018, the New Yorker cracked the case wide open, pointing fingers at none other than Les Moonves, the former CEO and chairman of CBS. According to their investigation, it wasn't just bad press or bad luck. There was a vengeful executive with a grudge, and he had the power to make sure Janet Jackson paid the price. Here's where the hypocrisy explodes. Les Moonves, the powerful CBS executive who claimed to stand against harassment during the height of the #MeToo movement, was later exposed himself, accused by multiple women of the very same behavior he was publicly condemning. He eventually stepped down, but not before leaving a trail of destroyed careers behind him. And yes, Janet Jackson's career was one of them. The Huffington Post reported that Moonves was infamous for holding grudges, and if you crossed him, he made sure you paid for it, sometimes for years. Let's not forget, it was CBS that broadcast Super Bowl 38 and the Grammys that followed. After the halftime scandal, Moonves reportedly banned both Janet and Justin from attending the Grammys. But here's the twist. Justin's ban was quickly lifted after he personally apologized to Moonves. Janet, she refused to bow down, and that decision sealed her fate. From that point forward, Janet wasn't just dealing with bad press, she was battling a powerful enemy behind the curtain. Moonves allegedly ordered his grip over MTV, VH1, and major radio stations to blacklist Janet's music completely. No airplay, no videos, no promotion. Her albums, Damita Jo and 20YO, were strangled before they even had a chance. Critics might have called them flops, but behind the scenes, it looked like sabotage orchestrated at the very top. Janet wasn't just punished for a wardrobe malfunction, she was targeted by one of the most powerful men in entertainment, and his vendetta nearly erased her from the mainstream. Janet's career may have never fully bounced back to its unstoppable peak, but don't get it twisted, she never stopped moving. Even after the Super Bowl nightmare, she still carved out wins for herself. Justin Timberlake eventually gave her an apology, though it came more than a decade late, and only after the public dragged him for skating by while Janet took the full hit. Still, it was a sign of how much the world had changed. Critics and fans alike began to openly admit that Janet had been wronged, her mistreatment becoming a turning point in how society started addressing misogyny in the industry. After 20 years old, Janet cut ties with Virgin Records and pressed reset. She dropped Discipline in 2008 and Unbreakable in 2015. Both albums stormed to #1 on the Billboard 200, proving that even if the industry tried to bury her, her artistry couldn't be denied. And while her mainstream dominance never fully returned, her legacy and influence only grew stronger. By 2022, Janet's net worth was still flexing at an estimated $190 million. receipts that no blacklist could erase. On top of that, she secured her own Lifetime documentary, Janet, giving fans an unfiltered look at her journey from child star to pop icon to survivor of one of the biggest scandals in entertainment history. With 5 decades under her belt, Janet Jackson remains untouchable, a legend who rose out of the ashes like a phoenix. And knowing her, she's far from finished, because Janet always finds a way to remind the world exactly who she is.